On a stormy night in December 2015, Sarah Miller's heart stopped beating for 7 minutes. The 45-year-old nurse at Mayo Clinic wasn't supposed to come back. Code Blue, Room 342, echoed through the hospital halls as her colleagues fought to revive her after a severe allergic reaction. But what happened during those 7 minutes would forever change how we understand the boundaries between life and death. The first thing I remember was floating, Sarah later recounted, her hands trembling as she described her experience. It wasn't like anything you see in movies. The physical world just dissolved. I found myself moving through 3 distinct realms, each more extraordinary than the last. Through tears, Sarah described encounters that matched ancient biblical descriptions of the 3 heavens, experiences she, as a previously skeptical medical professional, had never believed possible. Her detailed account, documented by hospital staff and religious scholars, aligned mysteriously with centuries-old texts she had never read. The most remarkable part, she whispered, still visibly moved years later, wasn't what I saw. It was what I felt. A love so profound, so overwhelming, that earthly words fail to capture it. What do you see when you close your eyes and imagine heaven? For centuries, humanity has painted countless visions of the divine realm, each more captivating than the last. Some envision magnificent golden gates stretching into endless clouds, while others describe vast gardens of unimaginable beauty where pain and suffering cease to exist. Throughout history, explains Father Michael O'Connor, a theological scholar with 40 years of study, every culture has held its own profound vision of paradise. Yet remarkably, certain elements appear consistently across continents and centuries. Ancient manuscripts from disparate civilizations describe strikingly similar features. Brilliant light that doesn't hurt the eyes, music that transcends human composition, and a sense of peace beyond earthly understanding. From the intricate descriptions in medieval paintings to the testimonies of those who've had profound spiritual experiences, these accounts weave a tapestry of wonder that has captivated generations. But perhaps most intriguing are the accounts that don't align with popular imagery. Descriptions so unexpected, so contrary to common belief, that they challenge everything we thought we knew about the celestial realm. The language of heaven holds secrets deeper than most dare to explore. While many casually speak of paradise or the afterlife, ancient texts reveal a far more complex reality, one where different terms describe distinct realms of divine existence. Rabbi Benjamin Weiss, keeper of centuries-old Hebrew scrolls, leans forward intently as he explains. The original texts don't speak of just one heaven, but of multiple realms. Each name, each description, carries layers of meaning lost in modern translations. In hushed tones, he reveals how the term heavenlies appears in ancient manuscripts, suggesting not just places, but entire dimensions of existence. Some passages speak of heavenly places, plural, hinting at various divine domains where different beings dwell and extraordinary events unfold. What's truly remarkable, whispers Sister Maria Santos, a scholar of ancient religious texts, is how these terms appear in writings across different faiths and cultures. It's as if our ancestors were all glimpsing pieces of the same magnificent puzzle, each capturing a different aspect of these celestial realms. But nothing could prepare us for what these terms truly represent. In the depths of an ancient monastery library, a weathered manuscript holds a secret that has captivated scholars for generations. The Apostle Paul's account in 2 Corinthians describes an extraordinary journey, not to one heaven, but 3. His words, penned centuries ago, tell of an experience so profound that he questioned whether it happened in body or spirit. I knew a man in Christ, the text begins, unveiling a mystery that would change our understanding of the divine realms forever. This man, whom many believe was Paul himself, was caught up to the 3rd heaven. The way he describes it suggests something both terrifying and magnificent. Father Thomas Morgan, who has spent decades studying these texts, trembles slightly as he reads the ancient words. What's chilling is how Paul says he heard things that no mortal is permitted to repeat. What secrets did he encounter? What truths were too profound for human ears? The manuscript goes further, describing how this same man entered paradise itself. But the most unsettling part? The suggestion that this wasn't just a spiritual metaphor. but a real place, a realm that exists beyond our mortal understanding. Paradise, the very word evokes images of ultimate perfection. But ancient texts paint a picture far more extraordinary than our modern imagination can grasp. The third heaven, the highest realm, holds secrets that have left even the most seasoned scholars in awe. What we've discovered in the oldest manuscripts is breathtaking, reveals Dr. Elizabeth Chen, her voice barely above a whisper as she unfolds a fragile parchment. The Greek word paradisos doesn't just mean garden. It describes God's own dwelling place, a realm so sacred that merely speaking of it filled ancient writers with trembling reverence. Consider the dying thief on the cross, to whom Jesus made an extraordinary promise: "Today you will be with me in paradise." Not tomorrow, not in some distant future, but that very day. This was no mere consolation, it was an invitation into the highest heaven itself. The most gripping accounts come from those who, like Paul, glimpsed this realm. They speak of experiences so profound that human language fails them. "The words I heard were inexpressible," Paul wrote, "things that no one is permitted to tell." In the quiet corners of monasteries and ancient churches, stories are whispered of encounters that defy ordinary explanation. Father Michael Romano, keeper of the Vatican's historical records, shares accounts that make even skeptics pause. "We have thousands of documented experiences," he says, his hands trembling as he opens a leather-bound volume. From desert monks to modern-day mystics, the descriptions remain hauntingly consistent across centuries and cultures. Among these accounts is the story of Sister Agnes, a humble nun from a remote monastery in the Alps. In 1956, during intense prayer, she experienced something that changed her forever. "The air itself seemed to part," she wrote in her journal, discovered after her death. "What I witnessed in those moments, there are no earthly words to describe it, but perhaps most compelling are the deathbed visions." Hospice nurse Maria Thompson has documented hundreds of cases. "It's not just what they see," she explains, her voice hushed with reverence. "It's how it transforms them. Their fear vanishes, replaced by a peace that radiates from them. Even hardened skeptics among the medical staff are left speechless." The patterns in these accounts reveal something profound about the divine realms. The quiet halls of St. Mary's Hospital hold countless untold stories, but none quite like the events of October 12, 2018. James Wilson, a 73-year-old retired teacher, was clinically dead for 6 minutes following a massive heart attack. What he experienced during those moments would leave medical staff and religious scholars alike in stunned silence. "I was fully conscious," James recalls, his weathered hands clasped tightly. "But it wasn't like being awake or dreaming. I moved through 3 distinct spaces, each one more real than our physical world. The first was familiar, like our sky but more alive. The second was filled with beings of light. But the third—" His voice trails off, eyes glistening. Similarly profound is the account of Maria Hernandez, a monastery caretaker in Spain. During a severe fever in 2019, she experienced what ancient texts describe as an ascension through the heavens. Her detailed description, recorded in her native Spanish, mirrors writings from centuries-old manuscripts she had never read. "The most remarkable aspect," notes Bishop Thomas O'Malley, "is how these modern experiences align perfectly with sacred texts, yet contain details that couldn't possibly have been known to the witnesses." Between the visible heavens and paradise lies a realm so extraordinary that ancient scribes struggled to describe it. The mid-heaven, Mesoronima in ancient Greek, exists as a vast expanse where divine encounters unfold with breathtaking frequency. In the original texts, explains Father Gabriel Martinez, his fingers tracing faded Greek characters, mid-heaven is described as a place of constant movement and divine activity. It's where angels traverse on their sacred missions, where proclamations echo across creation. In the monastery archives of Mount Athos, centuries-old manuscripts tell of monks who witnessed extraordinary events in this intermediate realm. Brother Theodore, writing in 1682, describes seeing mighty beings passing through the midst of heaven, carrying divine decrees. His account matches perfectly with the Book of Revelation's description of angels flying through mid-heaven. "What's particularly chilling," whispers Sister Catherine, an expert in ancient religious texts, is how consistently this realm appears in visions and experiences across different ages and cultures. It's described as a place of profound activity, where the barriers between divine and earthly realms grow thin. But the true nature of mid-heaven holds even deeper mysteries. The activities recorded in mid-heaven defy ordinary comprehension. Ancient scrolls discovered in Jerusalem's oldest monasteries describe scenes of extraordinary divine movement and proclamation that would make even the most steadfast person tremble. The texts speak of mighty angels traversing this realm with urgent messages, reveals Rabbi Isaac Benjamin, his hands shaking as he unfolds a weathered Hebrew manuscript. They describe celestial beings crying out with voices that shake the very foundations of creation. In the book of Revelation, 3 distinct angelic proclamations echo through mid-heaven. Each carries warnings of such magnitude that they're described as woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. The ancient writer's hand seemed to tremble as he recorded these words. Father James O'Connor, who has spent decades studying these accounts, leans forward intently. What's truly remarkable is the description of the everlasting gospel being proclaimed from mid-heaven. Imagine a message so powerful, so vital, that it must be announced from between heaven and earth itself. But perhaps most chilling are the accounts of divine gatherings in this realm, where celestial beings assemble for purposes beyond human understanding. In the shadows of ancient monasteries and hidden religious archives, records of mid-heaven encounters continue to surface, each more compelling than the last. The personal diary of Mother Teresa of Avila, discovered in a forgotten church vault, describes experiences that align perfectly with biblical accounts written centuries before. What we're finding is extraordinary, whispers Father Antonio Valencia, keeper of medieval church records. During intense prayer vigils, mystics throughout history have reported witnessing activities in this intermediate realm. Their descriptions, separated by centuries and continents, are eerily identical. A particularly gripping account comes from the remote monastery of St. Michael in Greece. In 1847, during an all-night prayer vigil, 12 monks simultaneously witnessed what they described as a great assembly in the heavenly spaces. Their individual testimonies, recorded separately, match with spine-chilling precision. But the most unsettling aspect, notes Sister Margaret, her voice barely audible, is how these historical accounts align with contemporary experiences. Just last year, during Easter Vigil at our monastery, several sisters experienced something that mirrors these ancient descriptions exactly. In the depths of Vatican's most restricted archives lies a collection of ancient texts that reveal a hierarchy of celestial beings so complex it takes your breath away. These aren't the simplified angels of popular culture. These are beings of awesome power and terrifying majesty. The term angel barely scratches the surface, explains Archbishop Thomas Richards, his voice dropping to a whisper as he opens a leather-bound manuscript from the 4th century. The Greek word angelos means messenger, but that's just one of their many roles. The texts describe 3 primary categories that make modern readers shudder. First are the messengers, beings of such radiance that their first words to humans are always, "Fear not." Then come the guardian angels, warriors of unimaginable power assigned to protect both individuals and nations. Their appearances in ancient texts often coincide with inexplicable deliverances from certain doom. But it's the third category that makes even seasoned scholars pause, the warrior angels. These, Father Richards continues, his hands trembling slightly, are beings of such might that a single one slew 185,000 warriors in one night, as recorded in ancient Hebrew texts. Throughout history, encounters with angels have been recorded in moments of extraordinary crisis and divine intervention. These aren't mere folklore. They're documented accounts that have left witnesses forever changed. In the monastery archives, Brother Michael Harrison whispers, carefully unfolding a centuries-old parchment, we have countless reports of angelic interventions that defy explanation. But one account from 1692 stands out above all others. He tells of a young monk, Brother Thomas, who was trapped in the monastery's underground chambers during a devastating earthquake. As the walls crumbled around him, he encountered what he described as a being of light so intense it turned the darkness to day. When rescuers finally reached him 3 days later, they found him unharmed in a pocket of space that shouldn't have existed. The surrounding walls had completely collapsed. Similar accounts surface across different cultures and eras. In 1943, during the height of World War II, Sister Maria Angelica recorded in her journal how an entire orphanage in Rome was spared during a bombing raid. A figure of blinding light stood atop the building, multiple witnesses reported. The bombs fell all around, yet not one touched the orphanage. But perhaps most chilling, Father Harrison continues, his voice dropping even lower, are the accounts of angelic warriors. The ancient texts describe them as beings of such terrible power that their mere presence could freeze armies in their tracks. In the quiet halls of St. Catherine's Monastery, Sister Rachel Matthews maintains a remarkable archive. Thousands of contemporary accounts of angelic encounters, each meticulously documented and cross-referenced with ancient texts. What strikes me most, she whispers, pulling out a leather-bound journal from 2019, is how consistent these modern experiences are with historical accounts. She opens to a page where a hospice nurse recorded the final moments of an elderly patient. The room filled with light, the nurse wrote, and the patient, who hadn't spoken for days, suddenly sat up and said, "They're here," before peacefully passing away. Father James Sullivan, who has spent 30 years collecting such testimonies, shares an even more compelling account. In 2021, during a devastating church fire in Brazil, multiple witnesses reported seeing a tall, luminous figure walking through the flames. When the fire was extinguished, they found the ancient wooden altar completely untouched, though everything around it was reduced to ashes. But perhaps most intriguing are the patterns emerging from these collected accounts. We're seeing certain consistencies, Sister Rachel explains, her hands trembling slightly as she reaches for another file. The presence of intense light, a profound sense of peace, and in cases involving protection, a complete absence of fear despite dangerous circumstances. She pauses, glancing at a locked drawer in her desk. And then there are the other accounts. The ones involving warrior angels. In a dimly lit chamber of an ancient monastery, Father Marcus solemnly opens a heavily worn manuscript, its pages darkened with age. Most people, he begins, his voice barely above a whisper, mistakenly believe Satan is confined to hell. The truth is far more unsettling. The ancient texts paint a chilling picture. Satan moves freely through the universe, operating with frightening liberty. In the book of Job, when God asks Satan where he has been, his response sends shivers down the spine, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it. What's truly terrifying, explains Rabbi David Cohen, keeper of ancient Hebrew scrolls, is his position as the accuser. The texts describe him standing before God's throne, day and night, bringing charges against humanity. His fingers trace the weathered Hebrew characters. He's not a prisoner in hell, he's a prosecutor in heaven's court. The implications are staggering. Two princes named Death and Hades may rule in hell, but Satan himself operates on a different level entirely, wielding influence across multiple realms. The most dangerous deception, Father Thomas whispers in the candlelit monastery library, is believing Satan's influence diminished with time. He opens an ancient text, its pages crackling with age. The adversary's greatest trick isn't his power. It's making people doubt his existence while he operates in plain sight. In the vaulted archives of Jerusalem's oldest church, Rabbi Benjamin unrolls a scroll carefully. The ancient texts describe Satan as the accuser of our brethren, who accuses them day and night. This isn't just historical, it's happening now, in this very moment. Sister Maria, who has spent decades studying these texts, shares a chilling observation. The book of Revelation warns that Satan's fury increases as he realizes his time grows short. The ancient writers trembled as they recorded these words, understanding their weight. The manuscripts speak of spiritual warfare waged not in dramatic displays, but in subtle deceptions and quiet corruptions. The most terrifying aspect, Father Thomas continues, his voice dropping even lower, is how this being operates simultaneously in multiple realms, heaven, earth, and the spaces between. In the archives of St. Michael's Cathedral, there's a room few are permitted to enter. Inside, leather-bound volumes contain accounts that would make even the most steadfast believers shudder. Father Michael O'Connor, keeper of these records, shares one particularly haunting case from 2018. A monastery in the remote Alps, he begins, voice trembling, documented an incident during their midnight prayers. The entire brotherhood simultaneously experienced what they described as an oppressive darkness that seemed alive. Their collective testimony describes a presence moving through their ranks, leaving a trail of inexplicable cold. Sister Elizabeth, who maintains similar records at Notre Dame, reveals another disturbing pattern. We've documented countless cases of spiritual attack following moments of significant spiritual breakthrough. It's as if, she pauses, crossing herself, as if someone is watching, waiting, and responding. Perhaps most chilling are the accounts from experienced exorcists. What we encounter, explains Father Rodriguez, his weathered face grave, isn't random evil. It's organized, intelligent, and patient, exactly as the ancient texts warned. But there's something else, he hesitates, glancing at a locked drawer in his desk. In the deepest vault of the Vatican archives, there lies a collection of manuscripts that tells a story so profound it changes everything we understand about human nature. The ancient texts speak of sin not as mere wrongdoing, Father Giovanni whispers, his hands trembling as he opens a centuries-old volume, but as a corrupting force that altered the very fabric of creation. The Hebrew scrolls tell of a perfect world fractured by a single act of disobedience. What happened in Eden, Rabbi Cohen explains, his voice heavy with gravity, wasn't just about eating forbidden fruit. It was a cosmic rebellion that shattered the harmony between heaven and earth. Sister Agnes, who has studied these texts for 40 years, reveals the most chilling aspect. The manuscripts describe sin as a disease that spread through generations, corrupting not just humanity, but the earth itself. She points to an ancient passage, "The earth groans because it has been marred by sin." But perhaps most terrifying, Father Giovanni continues, his voice dropping to barely a whisper, is how this corruption continues to spread, invisible yet devastating, like a spiritual pandemic across time itself. In the hushed silence of an ancient cathedral, Father Marcus reveals a manuscript that changes everything we thought we knew about redemption. "What happened on the cross," he whispers, his fingers tracing the aged parchment, "was more than just a death. It was a cosmic revolution." The texts describe an extraordinary moment when heaven itself tore open. The veil of the temple didn't just tear, Sister Marie explains, her voice trembling with emotion. It was ripped from top to bottom, signifying something unprecedented in human history. Most chilling are the accounts of what happened in those crucial moments. The ancient writers describe it as a divine invasion, Rabbi Solomon adds, when the highest heaven touched the lowest earth. The manuscripts speak of graves opening, the dead walking, and darkness covering the land, not as metaphors, but as witnessed events. But there's something even more profound hidden in these texts. In the quiet halls of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Father Thomas unfolds a story that bridges ancient mysteries with present reality. The veil between heaven and earth, he explains in hushed tones, isn't just a historical concept. It's being pierced every day in ways that would astonish us if we had eyes to see. Sister Maria, who documents contemporary spiritual experiences, shares a compelling account from last Easter. During midnight mass, she whispers, every candle in the cathedral suddenly flickered in perfect unison. The entire congregation felt what they described as a wave of overwhelming peace. These moments, they're happening more frequently. But what truly terrifies, Father Thomas continues, his voice dropping even lower, is how these breakthroughs often coincide with moments of profound crisis in people's lives. It's as if, he pauses, glancing at the ancient crucifix, as if something or someone is reaching through. In a sealed chamber beneath Jerusalem's oldest church, Father Gabriel carefully unfolds what appears to be the most ancient description of heaven ever recorded. The parchment, its edges crumbling with age, contains accounts that make modern interpretations seem pale by comparison. The Book of Revelation's description of heaven, he whispers, hands trembling, isn't just symbolic poetry. John was trying to capture something he actually witnessed, something so overwhelming that human language simply broke down trying to describe it. Sister Agnes, keeper of ancient religious artifacts, reveals a collection of medieval manuscripts. Look at how they describe the gates, she says, pointing to detailed illustrations. Each gate carved from a single pearl, not decorated with pearls, but made from one massive pearl. The streets of pure gold, yet transparent like glass. These weren't metaphors to them. They were attempting to describe something that defied earthly physics. But it's what lies beyond these physical descriptions that truly haunts those who study these texts. The most chilling aspect, Father Gabriel continues, his voice barely audible, is what they saw moving within these structures. In the quiet corridors of St. Mary's Hospice, Sister Marga's kept a leather-bound journal for 30 years, documenting the final moments of those passing between worlds. Her records contain accounts that make even seasoned clergy pause in wonder. There was one case in particular, she whispers, turning to a page marked with a red ribbon. David Matthews, a lifelong atheist and retired professor. In his final moments, he began describing something that perfectly matched ancient biblical accounts he'd never read. Father James, who has collected similar testimonies for decades, shares another chilling account. A 5-year-old girl, after being revived from drowning, described in perfect detail the same celestial architecture that John wrote about in Revelation. She spoke of colors that don't exist on earth and beings whose mere presence filled her with indescribable peace. But perhaps most compelling are the patterns that emerge across these accounts. What strikes me, Sister Margaret continues, her voice trembling slightly, is how individuals from completely different backgrounds, cultures, and beliefs describe identical features of this realm. They speak of light that doesn't hurt the eyes, of music that transcends human composition, of a love so profound it makes earthly love seem like a mere shadow. She pauses, reaching for another journal locked in her desk drawer. But there's something else, something they all mention that we've never dared to publish. In the ancient library of Monte Cassino Monastery, Father Benedict maintains a remarkable archive of testimonies that bridge the gap between spiritual experience and human understanding. His collection tells a story that defies conventional explanation. What fascinates me most, he whispers, opening a worn leather journal, are the accounts from medical professionals who've witnessed these moments firsthand. Dr. Sarah Chen, a prominent cardiac surgeon, documented something extraordinary during a near-fatal operation in 2019. The doctor's detailed notes describe how her patient, while clinically dead for 6 minutes, experienced something that matched ancient biblical descriptions with haunting accuracy. The remarkable thing, Father Benedict continues, wasn't just what the patients saw, but how it changed them. They returned with knowledge they couldn't possibly have acquired naturally. Sister Helena, who has spent decades gathering similar accounts, shares another perspective. We have testimonies from people of every faith, and even those with no faith at all. The patterns are undeniable. She opens an ancient manuscript, its pages yellow with age. What they describe matches exactly what mystics and prophets wrote about thousands of years ago. But it's the most recent accounts that truly chill the soul. There's something happening more frequently now. Father Benedict says, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Something that suggests the veil between worlds is growing thinner. In the candlelit sanctuary of St. Michael's Cathedral, Father Thomas gathers his most trusted colleagues to share what they've learned from years of studying these celestial mysteries. The gravity in the room is palpable. What we've uncovered, he begins, his voice echoing in the ancient chamber, paints a picture far more profound than we ever imagined. 3 distinct heavens, each with its own purpose, each more extraordinary than the last. Sister Maria, clutching decades of collected testimonies, adds her perspective. The patterns are undeniable. From the visible heavens we see with our eyes, to the mid-heaven where divine messengers traverse, to the highest paradise itself, each realm serves a specific purpose in the divine order. But it's Rabbi Solomon's words that silence the room completely. What truly terrifies, he whispers, isn't just the existence of these realms, but how they interact with our world. The ancient texts speak of times when the boundaries between these realms would grow thin. Father Thomas reaches for a sealed envelope on the altar. And now, he says, his hands trembling slightly, we must share what we've recently discovered about these thinning boundaries. In the deepest chamber of the monastery, where ancient prayers have been whispered for centuries, Father Michael begins the most solemn invocation. The air itself seems to grow heavy with presence. "O Heavenly Father," he begins, his voice trembling with emotion, "we stand at the threshold of understanding these divine mysteries. The veils between worlds grow thin, and your children seek wisdom in these extraordinary times." Sister Agnes, keeper of the monastery's most sacred texts, joins in with words that echo through the vaulted chamber. "Holy Spirit, you who move between the realms, who witness the creation of all three heavens, grant us clarity in these moments of revelation." The gathered faithful feel something shift in the atmosphere as Father Michael continues. "We who have glimpsed these truths stand in awe of your majesty. From the highest paradise to the mid-heaven where your messengers traverse, to the visible heavens that declare your glory." He pauses, reaching for an ancient prayer book, its pages worn by centuries of use. "But now," he whispers, "we must pray for something more urgent, something the ancient texts warned would come in times like these." In the final moments of the gathering, Father Thomas rises, holding an ancient manuscript that hasn't been opened in centuries. The room falls into complete silence. "These revelations about the three heavens aren't just historical curiosities," he says, his voice carrying a weight of urgent purpose. "They're a call to understanding something profound about our place in creation." Sister Maria steps forward, clutching a rosary worn smooth by years of prayer. "The veil grows thinner," she whispers, "and what was hidden is being revealed. The ancient writers left us these warnings not to frighten us, but to prepare us." Dear friends, if you've been moved by these revelations about the three heavens, please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your perspective could help others understand these profound mysteries. If you found value in this exploration, please support our channel by subscribing and hitting the like button. Each subscription helps us continue bringing you these deep spiritual insights and ancient wisdom. Share this video with family and friends who might be seeking answers about the heavenly realms. Together, we can build a community of seekers who understand that there's more to our existence than what meets the eye. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, may you walk in wisdom and understanding.